Hello and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for September 23rd, 2021. We'll lead off with a Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Commissioner Ryan to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is roll call. All of the Planning Commission are here in attendance, we have a quorum. The next item is public input. Time has been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not currently listed as a public hearing on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to make comments? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public comment and we'll move on to our first item, which is a business item, Central Utah Water Conservation District, North Shore Reservoir Site Plan Amendment located northwest of Pioneer Crossing and Mountain View Corridor, south of 8800 North. Bowen Collins and Associates for CUWCD. Item presented by Senior Planner Sarah Carroll.
Sarah must have stepped out for something, so if you want to move on, and she's doing, oh, there she is.
There she is. Does she want to go up to the podium?
Are you guys ready already?
Yes, we're ready.
Oh.
For you, we're just waiting.
I wasn't expecting that. I just thought it took a minute. I would guess I'm more used to council. They always have a million things at the beginning. So, okay, we can go. Do I need, oh, here it is. Okay, thank you.
Turn it on. Is it on? Okay. Nope, there you go. There you go.
Okay, so North Shore, Central Utah Water Conservancy District, North Shore Reservoir Site Plan. So they already have a location in our city and they're adding more at that location, which is a good thing. So they want to expand the capacity by adding 15 million gallon cell as shown, and then restore the property to its current condition because that's below grade, right? So they want to then restore what's on top. Basically, you don't even really know it's there. Anyhow, here's some additional information about the project details. And then they want to relocate the access building and then reseed is the plan for landscaping, which makes sense there. It doesn't make sense in that location to have formal landscaping or anything. And it's all fenced. Nobody goes in there. And then staff recommends approval with the conditions shown.
Is the applicant here? Do you guys want to come up? Do you have anything you want to add?
We have a chair for you. If
yes, and a microphone that's hot.
She did a really good job. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I just say this is a good thing for the city. Helps benefits the city a lot as we gives us more capacity and ability to continue providing water to the city.
Could you state your name for the record and address for the business where you work for?
Brad Perkins, Central Utah Water Conservancy District.
That's probably good enough.
And okay, I don't remember the address off the top of my head.
Okay, I think we got it.
Okay.
All right, I'll go ahead then. This is not a public hearing. This is a business item, so I'll turn this over to the Planning Commission for any comments or questions.
I had a quick question, Mr. Chair, just to help clarify in my understanding. What is the driver for this? Is it being driven by the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, or is it something the city approached you on? I just wanted to kind of know a little bit of the background.
So the driver for this is part of our Central Utah Water project, which provides water to cities in North Utah County. It's water that we collect from our treatment plant in Orem and our wells in Vineyard. And so as cities have begun to step into their contract amounts with all of the development that we have going on out here, then we've reached the point where we need to move on to the next phase of this facility. So 2014, we constructed 10 million gallons with the plan to construct this 15 million gallon cell, and then sometime in the future we'll construct another 15 million gallons as demand dictates. So,
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Kilgore.
Since this is a administrative action, I'd just like to ask for the record, is the applicant willing to follow or comply with the conditions that are laid out in the city planning staff packet?
yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to ask, what's the minimum required landscape maintenance? Is it the same as the rest of the city for the area in the, for the property that you're?
For these sites, we don't have any. For public utility sites, we don't have any. If they're fronting a street, then we ask that the park strip be landscaped, but they're not.
So they don't have to keep the weeds down to a certain level or anything like that? As far as like for fire hazard?
Well, if they're, the native seed that they put down usually doesn't have that kind of an issue. If there is a big problem like that, then yeah, we would ask them to clean it up.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here. I did the site plan for the original site. Within the confines of the fenced area, there's no landscaping requirement. And also right now, there is no road out there as well. So there's no public way. We don't want any landscaping to go in where we think the right-of-way is going to go, because that could shift. And if I recall correctly, and Jeremy is not here tonight, I recall that the agreement was that when there is finally a road that goes through along the north side of the property, the city would actually just go in and plant some trees to meet that landscape requirement. Once we know where the right-of-way, and assuming there'll probably be a park strip there as well, where that park strip will be, we'll go in and put trees.
So eventually they could be landscaping?
Yes.
Okay, terrific.
Right, but not within the inside of the
Right.
facility itself.
Okay, thank you. And then, but whose property is this? Is this state, or is this county, or is it city?
Go ahead.
It's owned by the district, by Central Utah Water.
Okay, and is the district, is it a state?
Yeah, it's a state
And
agency.
okay. So does the city then get any kind of consideration or anything like that, or?
We buy water from them, and so it does benefit us to have their facility there and expand, because they're one of our sources.
Okay. Is it cheap? Okay, and then who pays for this? Is it your funding?
Yeah, it's funded through our Central Water Project.
Okay. And then maintenance, I guess you're also paying for too?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, that's it.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
So I went to a conference, the APA conference, and I went to one class where they're talking, it was like the Utah Water Conservancy Agency or Bureau or something. And they talked about the shortage of water, and we're in this drought, and it's a mega drought, and so on and so forth. And even so bad that cities like Oakley, Utah, have put a moratorium on building. And then the next hour I go next door and I take a class on affordable housing, right? And we're talking about high density housing. And I don't understand how you do both, how you say, hey, we got to be smart with water and we got to build like crazy and pack them in here. And so my question is, what's the status of North Utah County, Saratoga Springs, when it comes to water and its limitations, if any?
That's a great question. As far as the development side of things, you guys, that's your job, and we will, if you want to build houses, we'll try to provide the water, and that's our job. And so with our Central Utah project, we have storage in Deer Creek and Jordanelle. We also have storage in Strawberry Reservoir, and all of those reservoirs, I don't know the current number, but they're all above 50% capacity right now. And so some of those smaller communities that have run into those types of restrictions aren't part of a bigger network like we have. But because you're served through the Central Utah project, then there's actually quite a bit of capacity and funding and infrastructure that stretches all the way out to the Uinta Basin and has been being developed since the 1950s, and it's a incredible project that has made it so that in a year like this year, cities like Saratoga Springs are not I mean, of course, we want you to conserve, but you're not in the dire situation that some other communities might find themselves in.
Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Any other comments? Commissioner McConkey?
Sorry, just a question. Is there a separation between culinary and the irrigation, the secondary water? They two separate
Yes, so
entities?
The irrigation water in our city does not come from this source. It comes from other sources. So it comes from some deep water wells and Utah Lake and the river.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I will go ahead and open up for a motion on this item. Commissioner Barton, go ahead.
I move to approve the Central Utah WCD North Shore Terminal Reservoir Phase 2 major site plan amendment located generally northwest of intersection.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
Could you please add the findings and conditions?
Yeah, sorry.
Her microphone
It went off,
turned
and so
off.
I was like, oh, am I supposed to stop talking here?
Oh, your mic went off?
Located generally
Oh.
northwest of intersection of Pioneer Crossing and Mountain View Corridor as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Barton and a second from Commissioner Anderson. The city engineer rang in. Did you guys have a comment? No? Okay, all right. Do we have a second? Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Looks like the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a business item, the Point at Saratoga Springs site plan located at 1166 North Redwood Road. Eric Towner as applicant. Item presented by Senior Planner Sarah Carroll.
Dave, could you move the cursor again? Okay. So this one's fun to present because I have worked on probably 4 different versions of this over 5 years. So I am so excited to bring it to you guys. so it's just right here. It's just a little bit south of a few of the medical offices we have right off of Commerce Drive. So it's pretty close by, and they have 4 buildings. And those 4 buildings will have a variety of uses in there. They all have to meet the community commercial zoning. So they're going to have some retail, a bakery, a restaurant, several drive-throughs, as you can see, and then some medical office as well. Here's the landscape plan. We've done a close review of this, and it more than meets the landscaping requirements. They're required to provide us dumpster enclosure details, and that meets our code. And these are the colors and materials that are being proposed. So kind of a white and gray scheme with some wood accents. And then here are the renderings. These next 3 buildings look very similar. They're similar in size and things like that. So this is the rendering for pad A, and then this is pad B, and C, and D. So D is the largest building on there. And then a photometric, we reviewed that against our standards, and that complies as well. And then lighting details. There's a few conditions in there related to signage. They have a monument sign, and it needs some changes to meet our code, so there's a condition in there for that. And then with each tenant, since they don't have it all figured out yet exactly who will go in there. They have most of it figured out. And so I don't know if they'll share it or not, but you could ask. So as far as the signs on the walls and the drive-through, and we'll do that with each one individually. And then the lighting meets the requirement with some conditions. So they do have to use black. And then the one that's crossed out there, they can't use that because it's too short. The base around the pole has to be a minimum of 16 inches. And so that's covered with the conditions. So we do recommend approval with the findings and conditions here. One thing, there's just a few minor things on their plan set that they need to fix before we stamp them. So that condition is totally fine. After this meeting, they can, address any tiny remaining item and get their plan stamped and move forward with their pre-construction meeting.
Is the applicant available?
Yep.
Yes. Would you please state your name and address?
Yeah, Eric Towner with X Development, which is the manager for this project.
Do you have anything to add, you'd like to add to it?
Yeah, so just as Sarah had stated, we've owned this property not as long as the previous owner. Very experienced retail development management firm, and excited to bring in these operators, these users, these businesses. A lot of them are locally owned, and very excited to open here. Great mix of tenants here. We work with Hales Engineering to make sure that our queuing and our drive-throughs and everything work great. Since COVID, obviously, drive-throughs are very popular. We work with our tenants to make sure that they queue properly. If they do back up, that they have personnel on site to make sure that those queuing does not interrupt the inflow and outflow from our site. On top of that, we like to overpark slightly for our projects to make sure that there isn't an issue with parking like you have in some of the older developments that we used to see along the Wasatch Front. As far as some of these conditions, I've worked with our architect, Sarah, since you sent over those conditions. Very easy, very minor, super easy. I think he may have already had those already there, and I think we'll just send some communication back and forth before that's stamped. But open to any questions if you have any.
Okay. I'll go ahead and open this up to the Planning Commission for questions and comments now. Commissioner Kilgore.
You say my name?
Yeah, Commissioner Kilgore, yes. You buzzed.
I just first want a clarification. The beginning of the packet says it's administrative, but then another part says this is legislative.
Oh, I apologize. It is administrative.
It's administrative. Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay. And since it is administrative, I always ask, just for the record, so is the applicant willing to comply with the conditions in the staff report?
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. And then, so the monument sign one, that was the only one that I was really concerned, not necessarily concerned, but I had, raised my eyebrow. But you're saying that it looks.
Well, we require additional signage applications, so this isn't their final signage approval. Our site plan application requires them to submit their signage, so they submitted it and we reviewed it and we have some conditions for them, but they still have to get a sign permit and a building permit, so we have 2 more layers of review. So
Okay.
we'll get it covered.
So it's just mostly administrative stuff then?
Yeah, those just go to staff. They don't, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have no problem complying with the sign regulations then for the monument?
Yeah,
sign?
no problem. We're familiar with the conditions that they've laid out and the changes that need to take place, and our engineers and architects are in the process of making those adjustments.
Terrific. And then just wanted to ask, I've been doing this for a long time, but I still don't know. When, different types of businesses have different parking requirements. So when we're constructing the buildings, but we're not always sure yet, even if you are now, but when we aren't sure what kind of tenant comes in, how do we decide what the parking requirements is?
Sure,
It could be anywhere from 1 to 4, right? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So our parking ratios range from 4 per 1,000 square feet to 10 per 1,000 square feet. And they pretty much are aware, the overall project has about 25,000 square feet between the 4 buildings, and there's about 7,000 square feet that was undetermined at this point. But that 7,000, the parking they provided for that is about 7 per 1,000 square feet. And and the highest user is restaurant, and they're not going to put a restaurant in that space. You know what I mean? They're not going to it's going to work out. So
Okay.
I'm confident that it's going to work out based on 7 could actually be in some scenarios, if it was retail, then the requirement would be 4, so 7 would be plenty. But with the 7,000 that's remaining, do you know what those are most likely going to be?
Yeah, so how we typically work this is we've got fantastic consultants, great architects, great engineers. We've done several retail projects just based off of experience and understanding how habits are of consumers in this market along the Wasatch Front. Our typical goal is to hit somewhere around 6.5 stalls per thousand if we were to speculatively build all 25,000 square feet in this project, as we'll have a little bit of medical office users, probably like a dentist, and some fast food users are not, especially since COVID, not opening up their lobbies as much, or they're reducing their seats in their lobbies. So 6.5 is what we used to look for. This project, we're closer to 7, just because you guys are a growing community. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with that last 7,000 square feet. Totally honest with you, we've never started a project that's been this high pre-leased before. So that is another advantage. We have a lot of pre-leasing in this site, so we know exactly what those uses are, which is a data table which we worked with Sarah to show her. But about 6.5 is typically our target in the past if you're looking for future projects. That's probably very conservative so that you don't have a parking issue. We're closer to 7 on this site. I know some developers try to target closer to 5.5, which is pretty aggressive.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other comments from the commission?
I just have a quick question. Curiosity killed the cat. Are you at liberty to talk about those folks who have signed up?
Yeah, typically they like to make their own announcements and do their own grand openings before, but I think there's a couple of them that have signs out there so you can see those. Mobetta's their local food operator with Savory Group and Forefoot Group. Wingstop, I think, is in there. Piano Place, which is an instructional facility for after-school music lessons. Nail salon, a hair salon, goat hair salon. I forget the name of the dentist. And a bakery called Flake Pie. But there's several others, but just not coming to my mind right away.
Commissioner McConkey.
Thank you. I had some similar questions and concerns about the parking. So, and part of my thoughts go to, of course, Cafe Rio, in that area right there.
Cafe Rio.
It's always going to be a challenge. So my question is, so for a restaurant use, did you say it was 10 parking spaces per 1,000?
Right.
So looking at the whole development, we're trying to find a sweet spot to where if there's a restaurant that goes in, we're providing 10, whereas, if there's another use that only requires 3 or 4, then it's all balancing out. Is that?
Right. That's the expectation, that it will all balance out. And to give you just a little bit of background on Cafe Rio, when that strip mall went in, we were not expecting a restaurant, and the parking ratio at that site is 4 per 1,000 for the whole thing. Because we knew the community wanted Cafe Rio, we allowed Cafe Rio to go into a site under an old ordinance, like under an old parking ordinance. And we knew going in that there would probably be some, high demand for parking at certain times of the day. But we also knew the community wanted Cafe Rio. So
the service is limited by the parking, so then it just... Right.
And so with this brand new site plan, it's under today's code. It's not under an older code. And the overall, as Eric mentioned, is just over 6.5 per 1,000 for the total site, and then on the remaining unidentified, or the 7,000 that hasn't been determined who the users are, it's 7 per 1,000. So if half of that was restaurant, we'd still be fine with, you know what I mean? So just from our review perspective, we feel that parking is adequate and probably more than adequate. But we can always add a condition if there's any concern. So if there's any concern at all, we can add a condition that just says that. My thought was the condition would be once they have those users identified, they submit that to me so I can re-review parking, and we can add that once. If you'd like to, we can add it. You don't need to add a condition. I'm not even saying that you need to. If it adds a level of comfort, the condition could be that once those users are identified, that planning review the parking ratios.
So we're looking at the life of the building, right?
Right.
And so 20 years from now, we may have hopefully we will have the same tenants, but statistics say that there will be some coming and going. So
if I can just give a little more light on that, because we do spend too much money on consultants and trying to forecast and everything. And just so you guys are aware of how parking is analyzed from a forecasting standpoint is as you become more urban and more people begin to bike or walk and you create trail systems. On top of that, the new habits of ordering online and having Grubhub or Uber Eats or something deliver food to you, I think in the next decade, you're going to start seeing a lot of cities revisiting and looking at their parking as saying, we potentially have too much asphalt just sitting doing nothing. As you get more dense with your community, more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, and then the food delivery becomes more and more and more convenient. Less of a need for people to drive to these locations.
Yeah, and that sounds good. I don't know that I agree with that, but I totally understand.
That's what I waste my money on is for that consulting.
No, and I'm not knocking anybody. I've got my personal views, but it certainly doesn't have any study backing or anything like that. It's just,
which is why we
maybe it's my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So totally fine.
We need it to perform today in today's habits. And that's why we overpark them above and beyond what our consultants ask us to from the start.
So
I
again,
do want to add just real quick, because this will in process wise, whenever we have a change of use, so say, we reviewed this site and we expect a retail store to go in, and that's what goes in initially, but 5 years from now, somebody else wants to go in. There's actually an application called a change of use, and they submit that to planning, and we review the parking.
From a B to a...
Yeah, if it goes from B to C, we look, if it goes from retail to medical office, so the four...
What are these zoned at? Are these zoned as an A and a B and a...
Well, these are zoned, the zone here is community commercial. What do you mean by what are these?
It's building use.
Oh, yeah. Community commercial has a whole list of uses, and so all the uses they're talking about are allowed here.
Okay.
But do you mean building code?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, building code as far as...
Yeah, so the occupancy type.
I don't know that answer.
So, which they haven't made, well, the building department probably hasn't...
No, the building permits have not been submitted. We don't allow those until after the site plan approval.
Right. So what balance of businesses and retail and restaurant use is the parking accommodating? When I say restaurant, I mean dine-in restaurant. Combination of dine-in and drive-in, but is the parking set up to be like a 30% restaurant use and 70% business use?
So I don't have it on the overhead here, but in your packet on the site plan drawing, there's a table in the corner, and it separates the square footage for each of those different proposed uses.
Showing the parking?
Right.
And I did look at that.
Well, it separates it showing, right, it shows how much square feet for retail and how much for restaurant and how much for bakery and how much for medical office. So it breaks it down in the square feet, and then it has the square footage that we don't yet know the users, and then it has the parking requirement based on each use.
I'm looking at the table right now. I think that may be part of where my concern was. I guess I'm wondering if there's a need, and I don't know what the review process is for future tenants that would come in. Is there?
Well, that's where it comes
when there's
back.
A change of use.
Yeah,
you said that's when you look at and you review of the parking situation is. So at this point, where the new building is coming in, I'm trying to think of an example here. It's not coming to me. But obviously, during the review process, we'll look at what the actual parking is. So let's say that in 10 years, everyone wants to have a restaurant in there, and that's not going to go. That's not going to make it through the review process. Correct.
Right.
So I think the bottom line concern, of course, for me is that we're avoiding the overcrowded, but maybe hitting that sweet spot in providing the parking that's needed and maintain that balance without creating the congestion that would become a long-term burden.
Right.
So it sounds like the review process would take care of that. And that answers my question with that. On page 81 talks about 4-foot projection non-compliance. Is that the drive-throughs?
So let me go to the elevations just a moment.
Thanks for answering my questions.
Sure. So any awning that's over a walkway needs to project 4 feet so you don't have ice or, water dripping if you're standing under that awning. And I'm not convinced that all of the awnings project the 4 feet. I've measured the ones over the walkways, and it doesn't look like they're hitting that, but it could be that part of the building's recessed, So I just need more detail. That's all. I just need the dimension
Totally
to
fine.
show the actual distance of the projection. It is possible that it's 4 feet, but from the views that we have, I can't tell for sure.
Yeah.
From my
Okay.
communication with our architect, he said we meet the 4-foot requirement.
Yeah,
So
he did tell
we
me-
can get you a detail on it. He had one question about the rear loading doors, if that was because I think the code was a pedestrian requirement over a pedestrian
Over a
walkway.
walkway, yeah.
Yeah, so if the rear loading doors for
No, those don't have to
supplies
be- yeah.
then he said absolutely every single pedestrian walkway is covered with a 4-foot awning where the awnings are located.
And I thought it was. I just added it as a condition because it wasn't clearly dimensioned on the plan set, so.
Sounds great. Are these open roofs? Are they just like a trellis type design?
Yeah, it's an architectural feature for aesthetic.
I think it looks good. I like it. On page 82, something about the windows, at least 50%. Oh, yeah, the street orientation, no, that too does not comply. If I'm understanding this correctly, there's the city ordinance is asking for more windows. Is that correct?
Yeah, the challenge with that is the floor plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how do you provide that when you also need storage areas and things like that? So I don't know that we're necessarily concerned about that one.
Okay. And then just a related question. The intent is for the aesthetics from outside, right? From the public view.
Right.
Does the city ordinance allow like blacked out windows to satisfy that?
I've discussed this with some staff. The way the code is written, it is to encourage that walkability. It talks about, it basically implies you need to be able to see through the window. However, that doesn't stop somebody from putting up a curtain or a blind on the other side.
Yeah.
And so we don't regulate once it's inside.
Throwing up sheetrock.
And
or
so
something.
this would apply to buildings that have a retail component, is what the code talks about. If you have a medical one, you can actually reduce that to, I want to say it's 30%. If you're a medical type use, because there's obviously some sensitivity as far as
Yeah.
that goes. But
Right.
So anything that faces the public street with a retail component would be the 50.
Okay. And that's what we're striving for, is that correct?
Well, and I think that we have achieved it in the areas that are potentially for retail. It's the areas that are more for restaurant and office that we can't achieve that. So I think that we have
We've
achieved
determined
that.
restaurants are not a retail, because you look at a restaurant, obviously,
Right.
if you have a building like this, your back of the house is going to be your coolers, your food preps,
Yep.
your storage. So you can't have windows for that type. So as far as restaurants go, we don't consider restaurant retail.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Just a safety question on the site plan there, the crosswalk on the northwest corner appears to be set back farther than typical, where it ties into that will tie into across the street. My question is, does this pose a safety hazard for someone driving north on Redwood Road, making a right-hand turn.
I know the applicant addressed that with engineering. Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, the visibility side triangles, we are making sure that they're left open. And the reason why the drive approach is configured like that is so that they could get the required radius for turning movements without causing a problem with the sidewalk and the next door property, being in close proximity to that next door property. So the visibility triangles will take care of any concerns.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Thank you. And that's just will take place during the review process. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we've already looked at that and looking at the landscape plan.
And it complies with that.
Yes.
Okay. Two more questions. Actually, three more questions. The site plan is not showing the roundabout. Is that just the roundabout is staying
No.
correct, or is that coming out?
It's not staying as a roundabout. So just so everybody knows, on the very bottom of this page, there's a road shown there, and right now that road has a circle in it, which it's not raised, it's level and everything, and so it's not really used as a roundabout. People just drive over it as if it's not a roundabout, and so that area is being modified on both sides so that won't be there anymore.
Okay.
I was going to say,
I guess roundabouts, but that one's not.
Americans can't drive roundabouts.
That one's more like a decoration than a roundabout. So
Yeah, the bigger
Okay.
issue is the proximity to a controlled traffic signal, and the engineers need more site room. If somebody's turning right into the site heading north on Redwood Road, they would need longer distance till somebody prepares for an actual roundabout.
Thank you. I was looking at the lighting plan.
Dave, you changed screens on us.
Just showing the roundabout. Just showing the roundabout.
Oh, you're showing the roundabout. Oh, okay.
It was.
Did everybody see the roundabout? Do you
Keep you alone. Yeah, when it's
Wanna
like,
go back?
On the lighting plan, I had one thought, and that is we're fencing this in, which I had another question here in a second about the fencing. We don't want to create unwanted light pollution, but I also am a fan of not creating a dark alley feel, and just solely based on the lighting plan, it almost seems that we're creating a dark alley on that northeast corner behind Building D.
Oh, behind the building?
Behind the building. This would be not in the parking area, but the drive-through lane that runs along the east side.
Yeah, so that would be the south. So that southeast side, that corner, that wall that shares
Along
right
that
there.
east, yeah, that
Yeah,
back.
so there are wall-mounted lights on the back side of that building. I'm not sure why it's not.
They're
shown
just
on
not
the
shown
photometric, but
on
we are not able to closely put a pole height, parking lot light
Right.
back there and be
Right.
able to avoid nuisance to the neighbors behind.
So,
But the drive-through would have some lighting to it.
And there's also a street light close to that on the east side of east corner of that property.
Yeah.
this whole area will be, I'm just, what type of lighting, wall lighting did you say on that
Yeah,
building?
so I think-
I'm just trying to get a feel that we're not going to have this,
Yep.
come 9, 10 o'clock at night or midnight even. Have
So
a good place
they're
for-
all on timers, but I think you showed on that light exhibit, it was that a cylinder can wall light. Yeah, on the left side.
Is there something that we can do just to maintain enough lighting in there to avoid, I'm just thinking things go down in dark alleys.
Okay.
Even in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And if there's something that we can do to hinder some of that activity, I feel like it would be a good move for the community.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
Yeah, actually, I looked at There is one, it's on that corner, but it's further to the east. So what we could have them do is add another street light rather than, because they can't fit it in their interior lot, so we could have them add it on that private street.
Oh, I
park
see.
strip. And that would probably solve that too. That's a good
And
idea.
that wouldn't be blocked by the 6-foot fence, would it? How high is the street light?
It's 15
12,
feet for
15.
a local, something, yeah. Like that.
I'm fine to add one right there. That's not a problem. As long as it does, and as long as we're not hit with some type of like.
We're not talking about
light
keeping it, daylight bright, just enough to hinder the activity. Probably would help with the security, any security issue, as one who had a friend who had some unfortunate events in a dark alley.
Yeah.
Closing up shop on a restaurant would be a good move.
So yeah, Steve, this is my partner Steve Hutchings with Next Development as well. So there are 8 wall sconces on that backside.
All on a timer?
Yeah, they're all on timer.
Commissioner Kilgore?
Yeah, so you're saying like at midnight or something, but our dark sky ordinance requires that all the lights are off anyway at that time.
Even in the parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, so we could require that half of them are on, or they'll come on if there's somebody who walks by, but the requirement is to have them turned off. So or the last shift, if it's one of those long shifts, then either I think it was 11 o'clock. After 11 o'clock, the lights have to go off.
Half.
Or at least half.
Yeah,
of it,
half.
yeah. So if that's considered part of the half, then it could be turned off.
It could. Maybe what I'd suggest is that the part of the half that would remain on, at least enough to keep that lit, would be in the best interest of the community. Outside of the parking function, we're just talking safety here. My last question, I appreciate that. My last question is on fencing. City ordinance allows vinyl fencing. How has the city, we have some developments that have some concrete fencing installed, correct? Is that just solely because the developer wanted to do concrete fencing, or is there?
Right, it is. Another thing, Dave, would you mind putting the aerial back over just so we can look at the proximity of the townhomes and the arrangement?
You got some parking.
So there are 2
garages
that
right
have
there,
their
right?
back next to that property line, and then the other property next to it's garages, so they're not too close other than those 2. So I don't know if that helps with your concern.
I looked at that. It really was just a question of what, I'm not wanting to stray from ordinance. I'm not a huge fan of vinyl in the long term because they seem to get dilapidated and damaged over time, of course.
Yeah, the ordinance doesn't, requires a privacy fence, but it doesn't allow, it doesn't specify type other than saying no chain link or no wire.
Wood.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. I appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Wagstaff.
Just one real quick. I'm glad that you guys are over parking, and I think your tenants are going to appreciate that too. That Utah Valley Pediatrics, or that building right to the south, they always have people from those townhomes parking in their parking lot and towing vehicles, and there's a lot of contention between those townhomes and that office. So I'm glad you guys are over parking, because you'll probably have overflow from those townhomes in your parking lot, unfortunately.
That makes a lot of sense. I never knew that. And it's always full.
Always full.
Always full.
Yeah, so the Riverbend HOA, and we've met with a couple of the board members of that HOA, and I personally canvassed this neighborhood as I thought it was more appropriate than hosting a single neighborhood meeting, which most people can't get their schedules together to show up at 5:30 all at the same time. And the neighbors immediately adjacent to our property back there, we've discussed the fence, the lot line, where the location would go, what would happen if there's a sliver gap between their current concrete wall that they have and the fence that we place on the property line. I think we've got a really good relationship with the neighborhood, and we want to be good neighbors with them. I think their number one concern, like you said, is parking. I do intend to propose with some of the surrounding property owners, if they are able to allow some overnight parking. We've stated that we will need to operate at full occupancy for at least 6 months. We have requirements to our tenants through our leases for exclusive parking to our tenants and not to be able to share those outside of the customers coming to visit our tenants. But potentially like a medical office that doesn't need something after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night, maybe there's a for-fee option that HOA could potentially work with. And that would include the medical office building to the south. But I drove through there. I've looked through there several times. I've reviewed their visitor parking. We also have some multifamily communities. And I think there's some solutions longer term, longer down the line after this gets developed out, after we work with that property owner to the south, Utah Valley Pediatrics, which we have another site that we've worked with them on down in Vineyard. And I think that there's potentially maybe some revenue streams for them and some solutions for the HOA.
I have another.
Go ahead.
So I'm still stuck on this lighting thing. So I know there were some can complies with lighting and such, but as far as the photometric plan, does the applicant meet the requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, and then and you have what, 6? You said wall sconces?
Yeah, there's 8 wall sconces on the backside of that building.
8?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's an administrative process. It's an administrative action. And I think if the client has met our requirements, then it should, I don't think we need to have a condition or anything like that as far as telling them half the lights have to be, because I don't think I want us to have to put that kind of condition unless it's in the ordinance. Every time an applicant comes through and they already meet the criteria, that I don't really feel like we need to do anything, with that. So I just feel like if you meet the criteria, you're great. We don't need to do anything else about it. So just making that comment.
Any other comments from the commission? I will open this up for a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the proposed site plan for The Point at Saratoga Springs located at 1166 North Redwood Road, and as shown in the exhibits with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated September 3rd, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Looks like the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're excited.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next item we have is the business item, Scooters Coffee site plan located at 2157 North Redwood Road, Kimberly Wilford as applicant, presented by Planning Director David Strout.
Well, Mr. Chair, you gave me the first slide. How about you do the second one? I was kidding. Yeah, we got the Scooters Coffee site plan up here in Harvest Point Commercial. The subdivision has been there for a few years. No one's built up there yet. We've had some site plans come through. But this one is the next in line for development. Community commercial is regional commercial is the general plan as well as the zone. Properties platted, recorded, improvements are in as far as utilities and roadways. The applicant is looking at doing a drive-through. Scooters Coffee is drive-through only, at least in this rendition, is a drive-through only. They'll have 6 parking stalls. The building and the canopy is 1,070 square feet. The canopy does count towards the minimum square footage, which is 1,000 square feet. They're at 1,070, so they meet the minimum square footage of the RC zone. There'll be about 17,000 square feet of landscaping, and they'll be classified as a restaurant takeout. They are less than 2,000 square feet, with the majority consisting of takeout only, which would be in this case the drive-through. The elevations you see here, and there's the sample board there in front of you, Commissioner McConkey. You can take a look and pass around. Hardy plank siding as well as reveal panel, which is a metal panel, and then metal and glass trim. The signage, you can also see what they will ask for as well. Of course, Sarah heard you about the other one. The signage is done under a separate permit. Landscaping consists of, the total property is 36,000 square feet. They require to have 7,300. They'll have, again, approximately 17,000 square feet with the trees and shrub numbers you see there. 95% of those will be drought tolerant plants. This is actually the old version. You received today, if you caught it today, two updates to your packet. This is the old version. I apologize, I didn't get the new one on here, which does show the proper planting. There are some red lines here. That red line you see there is no longer an issue. There still are a couple of minor red lines on your plan, just some dimensions, things like that. So should you see fit to approve the project, we just ask you that you condition it on those existing red lines. This will be the lighting then, the wall packs you see there. Initially, they had 5,000 K temperatures. That was one of the initial changes, was no, it has to be 4,000 or less. They're going down to 3,000 on the lighting plan. Lighting will be just on the building and the canopy itself. There are no parking lot lights. There's most likely what they've looked at, sufficient lighting. They're on three streets on three sides of their property. Sufficient lighting from the existing street lights there now to light up. Staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions, and open for any questions.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Would you like to come up and join us and state your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you. Kimberly Williford with Scooters Coffee. Address is 13664 Plaster Circle, Broomfield, Colorado. Also have with me Bruce Wilhite. He is our franchisee and the property owner.
Okay.
I'm a local boy from up in Bountiful originally, and I live in Omaha. I got moved there for the railroad. And so I picked up on scooters living in Omaha because that's where they were based. And I was, for the last 25 years, I've been going to scooters on and off to get their coffee. And I have a sister that lives here in Harriman, and then her boy would be the GM when the time comes, if we can get it all built. We purchased the property, and we're pretty excited to become members of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate all the hard work that Dave's done for us, and I'm sure our building will be much better for it.
Definitely.
All right, we'll go ahead and turn this over to the Planning Commission for any, I'm sorry, did I cut you guys off?
Oh, no, we're good.
Okay. I'll turn this over to the Planning Commission for comments. Any questions? Commissioner Kilgore.
So just my usual thing is, this is an administrative process, so just wanted to ask that the applicant is willing to comply with all the conditions in the staff report.
Yes, we are.
Terrific. Actually, I have nothing else.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, go. Sorry.
I'll go first before you. So is this the one that we had a few months ago that it wasn't the 1,000 square feet, and so Dave was saying if they added a canopy, then it would meet the requirements?
Yeah, we enlarged the size of the building just to meet the requirements since it was clear the 1,000 square foot issue was a bigger issue, and we just went a different route.
So what's the square feet of the building now?
What is it now?
Yeah.
1070.
That's the building, that's not including the canopy?
No, that includes the canopy, but the canopy is defined as part of the structure.
Right,
And so
but
it's
I remember
structured-
last time it was too small, and then, just add a canopy, and then it will make it, and so I hate that. Just because I feel like it's like I don't even know what to call it, right? So now I'm wondering, so what was the square footage of the building before, and what is it now without the canopy? Do we know that?
I don't recall what the,
Talking about it with the canopy for so long.
and I'm sure the first
Isn't this what we talked about
was-
last time?
Yeah, they were wanting to change the ordinance.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
that was a
Right, right, okay.
The zoning change, right? It was a
Yeah, and we didn't want to go smaller than that,
They want to have a
yes.
bunch of really small things.
But I don't think
And
we
we
had a
didn't
problem
want
with the
that.
building.
Yeah, because the conversation went the route of wanting to find a way to allow one user to do it on a case-by-case basis versus changing your code so that anybody could come in and do it. So the structure is 660 square feet, and then the canopy is 410 square feet. So it does run the full length of the drive-through side of the building, and it covers the cars. So the cars now drive through the canopy that's attached to the building.
So it's about the same size as it was before?
But we didn't have a problem with the building. We just had a problem with changing the
With changing the code.
the zone.
Right,
So now they check the box.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I was looking back for the minutes and for everything else beforehand. I could not find it. I mean, I probably wasn't looking well enough, but.
It was March or February.
I remember
so
there
it
was
a long
something
time
that we
ago.
talked about, and there was something that concerned us, and I couldn't remember exactly what it was. And okay, that helps. Thanks. That was it. That's all the question was.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I just want to, I love the design, so great work, and thanks to the planning department as well. I just love the way that the drive-through is set up. I think that's important, because people love their coffee, and it's going to stack up quick.
Definitely.
So you have a lot of room for that, and I appreciate that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, the code, I think, calls for 4, and we're providing at least 13.
Yeah, I
within
counted
the drive.
13, I think, in the drawing at least. So.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have that, right?
Yeah.
Bruce hopes
Yeah.
so.
That's what you're banking on.
I don't think you're going to have any
It's
problem.
only 12, because everyone does drugs.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah.
You don't want to get greedy because people don't want to wait in line. So that's one of our things. We'll make sure that we move everybody through the site fast.
Scooters is amazingly fast service.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. And amazingly fast food. So those people move a lot of cars through that drive-through window.
Yeah.
And this will be the first scooters in Utah, or is there another scooters in
There's
Utah?
2 here already. One's in Roy, and I think it's done out of a older, like a Dairy Queen kind of a thing that's been adapted. And then they built one in Pleasant View, which is, just north of Ogden there. So that's the only kiosk, and there's interest in other parts of the state. There's some other interested franchisees. St. George is included in that.
Well, we appreciate you thinking about Saratoga Springs. It's great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful area to be in.
I appreciate you guys clarifying. Like, I knew there was something about it, and I couldn't remember what it was, and I didn't want it to be, so thanks.
Okay, any other comments? The only thing I had a question on the garbage dumpster surround, but I noticed that on the updated one for today, the wording that was missing on the other one is now there, so.
It is a fully enclosed, we built a CMU wall structure. We have solid metal gates, so it is completely enclosed.
Right.
And there were some bollards, I think is what the comment was that was on the previous plan, but it's on
Bollard,
there now. We did
self-latching
add.
gate, I think were the corrections.
Right. Well, the thing that was missing was colors and materials shall be consistent with the main building or use.
Oh,
And on the
okay.
previous one, that wasn't there, and I was just wondering why. But, okay, I'm good. I'll go ahead and open this up for a motion at this time.
Commissioner Ryan, I move to approve the proposed site plan for Scooters Coffee in the RC Zone 2157 North Redwood Road with the findings and conditions in the updated staff packet dated September 23rd, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Congratulations and welcome
Thank
to
you.
the city.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes and send any changes into the city recorder that's needed, or have any changes that need to be brought up at this time? If not, I will go ahead and entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for August 26, 2021.
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan.
I'll second that.
Then we have a second from Commissioner McConkey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved unanimously. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Anderson and I both attended the American Planners Association conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was I enjoyed myself, if that's possible.
And he won the drawing.
Yes, and I won a drawing, too.
Oh, there we go.
Some
Yes.
swag.
Do you know when the next one will be?
That's a good question.
Director Stroud.
It's every 6 months. Typically, there's a fall and a spring. It used to be where the spring would be down south because people want to get out. It's been winter. Let's go someplace warm. And the fall would be up north. They've kind of gone back and forth on it, so it's not a guarantee, but I would suspect the spring would be down south somewhere.
Okay.
Usually it's April.
a couple of things that I thought were interesting was one of the sessions I went to was called the missing middle, and that was for housing that's sort of in the middle. It's not necessarily single family. It's not huge multifamily. And one of the issues that a lot of cities have, and I think we have it here as well, if we're going to have like a townhome type of situation, if we have like a 5 or 10 acre lot available, there's no way the community would allow us to just put that in there. So we end up having to put them in like 500 or 100 acre lots. Then it gets and that's one of the areas that they identified as a possibility for affordable housing. And that's, I don't know, how do we necessarily change the attitudes? Because if we tried to build that, then we have lots of people show up and no way.
Was there a lot of discussion about affordable housing while you guys were there?
There was a fair amount, but for me, one of the problems I thought is I don't really care for Daybreak, the Daybreak area per se, and they kept the younger people. Yeah.
Neither, but.
I talked to some other planners from other places. One was in Linden. She was on the planning commission there. I had a good conversation with her. And we talked about ADUs too. And the Linden, they had to change their code because they required 2 parking places, so they had to change it to 1. So it's not just us having to change or add code. So that was interesting. I was just wondering the other thing was huge is they're pushing for bike lanes, but they don't just want painted bike lanes. They want lanes are like on their own and protected. And I'm just like, we're at a point right now where we just need roads. We need the roads first, and then maybe later on we can worry about having more bike lanes. Go ahead.
You stopped. You're talking about Daybreak, and then you stopped. You said the younger people were pushing for the stuff in Daybreak. They like it, and they said that you can have a high-density house like a condo. They showed pictures that were built to look like mansions, but there were a 3-story condo that had, I can't remember how many units in it. There weren't a great deal of units, maybe 10 or 15, I think. And they did look quite nice. Some of the stuff that we have here is just bleh. It's like, wow, is that a condo or is that a store? It's just a box, and it's not that imaginative. But that was pretty imaginative. So they have that, and then right next to it, they might have $1 million house, too. But anyway, I don't like it because a lot of the roads seem to be smaller to me, and it's just
I agree.
More compressed, and I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, here in Saratoga, kind of accommodating the future while preserving the feel that we have in the present.
Right. I like the idea, and I hope when we bring up the general plan, one of the things we did in the last general plan was that we got a lot of feedback from the community that they want to keep the community as kind of a resort feel. And one of the things that we identified to help us with the resort feel is if we could keep the mountain biking stuff going. We don't have ski resorts here per se, but that's one thing. And then, of course, somehow, hopefully, we can use the hot springs as an asset for the community as well. And I was just wondering what Commissioner Anderson, what his thoughts on the conference were.
It's awesome. And I like that they had a citizen planner track. So there's a lot of city planners and, like they speak a different language sometimes. Not all the time, but anyway. So they had a citizen planner track, and you're in there with other planning commissioners who are volunteer types. And so that was nice. I didn't go to all those. I tried to hang with the planners, actually. I went to a class called The Signs of the Times. I was like, this is catchy. But they were talking about signage and kind of that difficult ground of what you can regulate and what you can't, and how it can be controversial, especially during election time and stuff, and precedents that have been set by certain rulings in the court. And anyway, it's good.
When I first started, we had to change our signage code because there was a ruling that came down, you can't regulate content. And it sounds like there's another ruling that's going to be coming out soon where we may have to do some additional changes, at least from that meeting that I went to. I also went on that, they did a tour of Big Bend, Jordan River area that they've kind of reclaimed, and they're doing some kind of neat stuff to make the river more natural.
Where at? What area?
It's
Taylorsville, isn't it?
Yeah, it's out there, Taylorsville. It's on, there's 5 cities that actually border this area. It's a 70-acre. Part of it was a farm at one point.
Who's doing the work? Is it the city
There were several agencies. There's 5 cities that are involved. There were some federal agencies that were involved. The Jordan River Commission was one of them. Yeah. And then I think it's Zions Bank is building a big processing center, and they've also are contributing some land, and they have a piece of it as well. So it's big. It's kind of a big deal.
I worked on that project before coming here. Excuse me. And yeah, it's a big, it's West Jordan is who's doing it. West Jordan City.
The mayor was there, and the West Jordan mayor was there, and he addressed us about the project.
It's really a neat project.
What about what south?
It's about 90th south. Yeah.
It's not accessible to the public at this time, but it will be.
Interesting. I like it.
Any other comments from the commission? Sorry to take up so much time. I wanted to share.
I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I haven't had a chance to look at the city council meeting. Did they make a decision on where to go with the ADU stuff?
Yeah, and I'll just, this is on my list. I'll just bring that up when it's my turn to go over other things.
I'll make a couple comments. One was the breakfast at the planners was, I think, a great success. So kudos to you guys and putting it together. I wish Ken was here. He could hear us say this as well. So I think it was, didn't expect it to be a flop by any means, but I was very surprised at how successful it was, in my opinion.
That was great turnout.
I think it was fantastic.
I know that they're talking about wanting to get a bigger venue for the next go-around.
I hope so.
It'd be good.
Keep having turnouts.
Yeah, I don't know where that would be yet. Maybe a school, I don't know, but that could be in session at the time. But yeah, there were some sound issues there. I know they're doing some sound dampening. They got some sound dampening ordered for that room as it is. Okay. Maybe once that comes along, maybe it'll be a little bit better.
You get to do a portable tent. Might be an option right there.
The sound wasn't great, but I also felt like, there was just a lot of people there for that size of thing. That was awesome.
I thought the other thing, maybe they could do a presentation and then do breakouts and have people come and talk to them. That was another thing I thought maybe they could do.
It's great.
I attended, sat in on this council meeting because I wanted to know what the outcome was. I wanted to hear the discussion and so forth. There was something there, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. So I just want to put that out there right now. But I think there was something said that maybe wasn't intended, but that's just my opinion. I think that the effort that was put into the whole ordinance was far from being a failure, and I think that it was a huge success. I appreciate what you guys have done to write the ordinance, to add your expertise and your background and so forth. While it's not perfect, I think you guys did a fantastic job. So
thank you.
We appreciate that.
Okay, if there's no more commissioner comments, I'll go ahead and turn it over to a director's report.
Yeah, just going off the ADU. Yeah, the council passed it. Obviously, we had to have it in place before October 1st. Otherwise, it was citywide. And the biggest, thing the council wrestled with was, do we limit up to 25% or do we just do it citywide? Ultimately, after the first meeting with the council, 3 weeks ago, they told us, what metric they wanted to use as far as, because they were kind of leaning towards doing the percentage, and we had to have that addressed anyway, because whatever option they chose, we at least had to have an answer. And so they went with they told us to look up the CC&Rs for what ones are recorded. They're recorded at the county. So we looked them up and went with the oldest subdivision first, and what HOAs were contacted to say, yeah, we want to be exempt from ADUs. And so we kind of built that list from there. And so we took in several neighborhoods that said they wanted to be exempt based on the HOA president who we had contact with. But then we also went back in to those neighborhoods. For instance, Legacy Farms is one of them. that was exempted. But we know that all legacy farms is not single family. There's a lot of townhomes. Now, the state code says it's a single family dwelling only on a, single family lot greater than 6,000 square feet. So we actually pulled out those neighborhoods of lots that did not apply. And so of all the identified neighborhoods, we're actually only at about 8.5% of the residential area of the city. The council chose to go with the percentage. It was a 3-2 vote to go with the percentage. What that allows it to happen now, though, is that other neighborhoods could still come in and request, we want to be part of that no ADU percentage, go through the process, amend the map. It'd be basically just the same as an ordinance amendment. It actually would come to you as the public hearing. Should a neighborhood come in and say, we want to be part of that 25% exemption, would go through that process to amend the code. There are some things they want us to work on still on this, and we all understand too that this code, it's going to be work in progress most likely. Well, let's see how it goes. The state was forcing our hand in doing this. Now, we were going to do it anyway, but we wanted our own standards. I actually had a code written about 1.5 years ago to do this, and then when we got word that the state was going to probably look at a bill at that time, the next legislative session, I put that on hold because it wouldn't make any sense for us to do something, then have to change it because of the legislature's actions. So we got that. It's in place now. We suspect at some point, something may not work right, or they may want to look at parking or where it's located or whatever it may be. But we do have the code now. We did meet the deadline, obviously, by what the state has established. And so as of right now, we've got about 8.5% of the residential area of the city, which is not permitted to have an ADU.
It'll be interesting to see how the market responds.
Yeah. And I gave, my anecdotal evidence, Ken's anecdotal evidence at the first city council meeting where, where I used to work previously, they had accessory apartments. I probably brought this up maybe when I came to you. Then it was closed for 10 years and opened back up. There just wasn't a rush of people to come in for an accessory apartment. And Ken relayed the same thing and where he used to work as well. It's just, it's still expensive to do it. You have to have the right conditions. You have to be in a position to do it as well. And so, but ultimately the council approved it at that percentage. There's still room to add to that percentage. And we'll just carry on from here.
Okay. Do we need?
We got a few other things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Engineering, I'll speak for engineering. They do have a new engineer coming on board. When does he start? Or Scott, if you just want to tell them who it is and start date and all that.
Kyle Kingsbury started with us last Wednesday, I think.
Oh, he started, okay.
Yeah, he started already,
okay.
So he will be here eventually.
And we have put an offer out for a planner one, and so he's actually a Saratoga Springs resident. He works for Bountiful City right now, but he's verbally accepted the offer, and so we're just waiting for the signed paperwork to get to him, then back to us so that he formally accepts the position.
Great. Are we going to get a city engineer again, or will it just be the public works director?
I can't speak for that. Scott may know some background.
Yeah, so Jeremy's going to be the city engineer, public works director, so he's going to keep the title. And Dan moved into assistant city engineer position, so
okay,
that's going to be the structure going forward.
All right. Anything else?
That is all I had.
Said that she wanted to remind everybody that there's a meeting next week.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Yes, we do have the special, and I think everybody said they'll be there. We're going to have IHC on there, the village plan, as well as North Shore Commerce Center rezone.
Okay.
It wasn't quite ready yet, so just watch your email.
Yeah, you should have it tomorrow.
All right. Do we have a need to go into a closed session this evening?
We do not.
All right. Without any objection, we will adjourn. Thank you. Awesome.